Have you ever noticed how, at some point, life quietly starts asking questions? Not out loud, not all at once. Just little questions that begin appearing everywhere. What are you doing with your life? When are you going to settle down? What's your plan? Where do you see yourself in 5 years? And somehow, after hearing those questions often enough, we start asking them to ourselves. Sometimes at night, sometimes while staring at the ceiling, sometimes while watching everyone else seem to move forward. And slowly, without realizing it, we begin carrying a strange pressure. The pressure of having everything figured out. You're listening to the gentle palette, where I draw and occasionally overanalyze life. And while today's drawing slowly takes shape, I want to talk about something many people feel but rarely admit. The feeling that you're running out of time. The feeling that everyone else knows what they're doing. And the fear that somehow, you're the only one who's still trying to figure things out. A few years ago, I thought adulthood worked like a map. I imagined there would come a day when everything would suddenly make sense. A day when I would know exactly what I wanted, exactly where I was going, exactly who I was becoming. But the older I get, the more I realize something surprising. Most people are improvising. Even the people who look confident, even the people who seem successful, even the people giving advice. Many of them are simply making the best decisions they can with the information they have, and then figuring out the rest along the way. But social media tells a different story. Open your phone for 5 minutes and you'll find someone starting a business, someone buying a house, someone getting married, someone traveling the world, someone announcing a new achievement. And after a while, it starts to feel like everyone received a guidebook for life except you. You begin comparing your unfinished chapter to someone else's highlight reel. And that's a dangerous comparison, because you're comparing reality to a performance. I think one of the biggest myths we are taught is that life is supposed to follow a schedule. Graduate by this age, get a job by this age, be successful by this age, own something by this age. As I draw these patterns, I think about how often we expect ourselves to see the entire picture before we've even drawn the first line. Life isn't a racetrack, yet so many of us spend our days looking sideways, checking how fast everyone else is moving. As I draw these patterns, I think about how often we expect ourselves to see the entire picture before we've even drawn the first line. We want certainty before action, guarantees before effort, answers before experience. But life rarely works that way. I remember being younger and thinking that adults had everything figured out. They seemed confident, certain, in control. But then you grow up, and you realize that many adults are carrying the same questions they had years ago. They're still wondering if they're making the right decisions, still questioning themselves, still learning. The difference is that they learned how to keep moving despite not having all the answers. And maybe that's what maturity actually is. Not certainty, but courage. The courage to continue, even when the map is incomplete. Perhaps that's why we become so exhausted. Not because life is difficult, but because we're constantly measuring ourselves against impossible standards. We're trying to have the perfect career, the perfect relationship, the perfect future, the perfect plan. And all that pressure leaves very little room for simply being human. Very little room for mistakes. Very little room for change. Very little room for growth. Because growth is messy, growth is uncertain. Growth often looks like confusion before it looks like clarity. You don't need to have your whole life figured out. You only need to know what the next step is. Just the next step, the next conversation, the next lesson, the next small act of courage. Because life is rarely built through giant breakthroughs. It's usually built through ordinary days that quietly accumulate into something meaningful. And maybe that's enough. Maybe it's okay to be a work in progress. Maybe it's okay to still be figuring things out. We're just doing it at different speeds and hiding it with different levels of confidence. We want certainty before action, guarantees before effort, answers before experience. But life rarely works that way. Most things become clear after we begin, not before. A drawing doesn't reveal itself all at once. Neither does a life. You start with a line, then another. So if there's one thing I'd like you to take away from today's video, it's this. You are not behind, you are not failing, and you are not the only person who doesn't have everything figured out. Life isn't an exam with a single correct answer. It's a journey of discovery. Thank you for spending these few minutes with me. Take care of yourself, and remember, you don't have to know the entire path to begin walking it.